My Uncle Cecil Pollard and my father, Fred Pollard, were sitting in the backyard in a couple lawn chairs talking. I sat out there on the grass with them as a boy, and they were laughing about Uncle Frank, who was the brother that was born in between the two of them. They were talking about Frank being a loftsman in Waycross, Georgia. He worked as a loftsman in a foundry there where they poured 3,000 degree molten iron into forms, make machinery castings. So Frank was pretty much used to hot temperatures. Well, he changed jobs. He wanted to move to Savannah, Georgia, because there was a lot more going on there. It was a fun town. He got on the train, the East Coast Champion, the old steam engine just a huffing and a puffing, and off she went. And she run about 109 miles an hour all across that flat Georgia country. Pulled into Savannah in just a little while, and Frank got off the train, stepped down on the steps off the Pullman car. He had a bag thrown over his shoulder with all of his lofting tools in the bag. He had on a suit, well dressed, and it was hot. The temperature had been over 100 degrees for quite some time now. The town was suffering. The humidity was high. The heat rising up off the brick sidewalks and brick streets, wavering through the air, made the houses appear to wiggle. Trees wiggled. Windows seemed to be afloat in the sides of the buildings. Frank, amused by it all, and everybody walking around sweating and acting like they'd never been in the heat before, he had his overcoat and his suitcase, so he took his overcoat out of his suitcase and put it on. And he turned the collar up, stuck his hands up in the sleeves, and I started walking into town. Well, 2 or 3 people stopped and looked at him, and one lady busted out laughing, and he walked like he was freezing to death. Well, it was a big joke, and of course he was going to live down at the end of the red light district in a boarding house there. So he come walking down through the red light district. And the ladies of the night were all sitting out on the porches of those big old houses of ill repute. And he come walking down the street, old Model T Fords, steaming, radiators steaming, dogs panting, hiding under the trees, a couple of horses standing on the beside the curb with foam all over them where they'd been sweating. And here come Frank walking down the street like he froze, like he was freezing to death, and people started laughing. A couple of the prostitutes come down on the street, and one of them made him an offer, which he refused. But there's a guy come out playing the trumpet, and he started playing a tune. Another one come out of another place playing a saxophone, and there was a guy with a set of drums come out and a set of spoons. And they started playing some music. Frank grabbed himself up a horse and started dancing with her. And then another and another. And other people joined in. And the first thing you know, there was a great big street party. And everybody, man, they had more fun. Here come this photographer down the street. Well, he started taking pictures. He took pictures of Frank, all dressed up in his overcoat, and followed him around everywhere he went taking pictures. He said, watch the newspaper, you'll see a picture in there tomorrow. Well, Frank said, okay, good. So anyhow, Frank went on down, took his tools and stuff and put it down into his boarding house where he was going to be living. Next morning, went to bed that night, slept all night. Next morning, got up. His head about to split. He drank too daggone much rum the night before. But anyhow, well, Frank had himself a couple drinks on the photographer, and so he headed back to the house to get his overcoat. Took the stairs 2 by 2 up to the top. He was a lot better man then. They had bargained a little bit. The photographer said he wanted 3 pictures, and Frank said 2. And the photographer said, all right, 2 pictures. So they agreed. When Frank come back down, he told the photographer, he said, I don't have an overcoat. I don't know what the heck happened to it. I must have left it out on the street last night. So the guy says, well, come on, I'll take you down and buy you one. Well, they went down to a haberdashery that also sold suits and coats and stuff. And after a whole lot of looking around, visiting several stores, they finally found an overcoat. Overcoats are kind of hard to find in August in Savannah, Georgia. They're not exactly a hot item. Well, maybe. Anyway, Frank put on his overcoat. They went walking down the street there, and the photographer took pictures, and they had a big time. People come back out, and they had a good time. It had rained, but it was even hotter because all the steam was rising off the sidewalks and the streets, and most of the little Ford cars were gone that had been sitting around there. I guess they went off during the night when it was a little cooler. So there was an article come out in the paper the next day. Pictures of Frank in there, and all whores, and the band playing, and everybody dancing, having a good time. And the title of the article is, "You have no idea how hard it is to find a 5-picture overcoat in August in Savannah, Georgia." Let me tell you something. We all got a kick out of the story, all 3 of us. You had to know Frank. That was the kind of a character he was. He did things like that, and he was a great joke teller, and he was the biggest liar there ever was when it come to telling stories. And just a town character every place he ever was. Satch, let me tell you something. You did a good job telling that story. He said it's almost exactly like what Mary told me. Because they live in Savannah now, and she said the story is all over town, and everybody in town heard the story. And of course, it was in the newspaper, so we all read it. And she sent me a copy of it, and so Ruby's got a copy of it in her picture album. But I'm gonna tell you something. I wish y'all knew Frank. It's just this story would be a real killer if you knew him, because his mannerisms and ways of telling things and doing things is just hilarious. He was a born comedian. Okay, well, that's about enough of this. Bye-bye, y'all.